Imagine a time when speaking your mind could get you hanged. A time when a simple idea, the idea of freedom, was so radical it could spark a revolution. This is the story of 1776, the year a fledgling nation found its voice and dared to challenge the most powerful empire on earth. This is the story of how America stood up. Before 1776, the 13 colonies were in a state of turmoil. Tensions with Great Britain had been bubbling for over a decade, and things were getting pretty heated. Acts like the Stamp Act and the Tea Act felt like a slap in the face, a clear message that the colonists had no say in their own governance. No taxation without representation wasn't just a catchy slogan. It was a desperate plea from people who felt their rights as Englishmen were being trampled. Skirmishes at Lexington and Concord had already spilled blood, but the path forward was anything but clear. Many colonists still considered themselves loyal British subjects, hoping for reconciliation. The idea of a complete break, of declaring independence, was a terrifying leap into the unknown. It was a whisper, a dangerous thought shared in hushed tones. In the sweltering summer of 1776, Philadelphia became the epicenter of this brewing storm. The Second Continental Congress, a gathering of delegates from the 13 colonies, convened in what we now call Independence Hall. These were not wild-eyed radicals, but lawyers, merchants, and farmers. Men like John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Hancock were wrestling with a monumental decision: declare independence, and they would be branded as traitors, their lives and fortunes forfeit. Remain silent, and they would condemn future generations to live under tyranny. The air was thick with debate, argument, and the weight of history. Every word spoken, every vote cast, could change the world forever. The colonies were at a crossroads, and the men in that room had to choose a path. Out of this crucible of debate, a committee of 5 was formed with a singular, audacious task to draft a document that would articulate to the world why the colonies were breaking away. The committee included John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston, and a quiet, lanky Virginian named Thomas Jefferson. Though only 33, Jefferson was known for his eloquent writing. He was given the primary responsibility of penning the first draft. From June 11th to June 28th, Jefferson secluded himself, working by candlelight. He didn't just pull new ideas out of thin air. He really thought about it. Instead, he channeled the spirit of the Enlightenment, drawing on the philosophies of thinkers like John Locke to distill a century of political thought into a single, powerful statement. He was crafting more than just a legal document. He was composing an anthem for a new nation. The result was a masterpiece of political prose. The Declaration of Independence opens with a preamble that still sends shivers down the spine. It asserts that all men are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Can you believe how groundbreaking that really was? It totally changed everything. In a world ruled by kings and aristocrats, where your station in life was determined by birth, this document declared that rights were not gifts from a monarch, but inherent to all humanity. It argued that governments are created to protect these rights, and when a government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. This was the moral and philosophical justification for revolution. It was the colonists' case to the world, a declaration that their cause was just. But the declaration wasn't just about high-minded ideals. It was also a very practical tool of war. The American Revolution was already underway, and the Continental Army, led by George Washington, was a ragtag force facing the well-equipped, professional army of the British Empire. The colonies desperately needed help. The declaration was a formal announcement to other world powers, particularly France, that the colonies were no longer fighting for better treatment within the British Empire. They were fighting to create a new, independent nation. This was a crucial distinction. It signaled to potential allies that America was a worthy investment, a sovereign state they could legally and openly support with money, supplies, and troops. It was a strategic gamble, turning a colonial rebellion into a legitimate international conflict. After Jefferson completed his draft, it was presented to Congress. What followed was 2 days of intense editing. The delegates debated every word, every phrase. They were literally editing the foundational document of their new country in real time. Jefferson, a proud author, squirming in his seat as his carefully chosen words were altered or cut. The most significant change was the removal of a passage condemning the slave trade. This was a painful compromise, made to appease the southern colonies of South Carolina and Georgia, whose economies depended on slavery. It was a stark reminder of the deep contradictions that existed even at the nation's birth, an issue that would haunt America for generations to come. Finally, on July 4, 1776, after all the revisions and debates, the Continental Congress formally adopted the Declaration of Independence. Church bells rang out across Philadelphia, and public readings were held in towns and cities throughout the colonies. This wasn't a quiet, administrative act, it was a public and defiant roar. John Hancock, the president of the Congress, famously signed his name in large, bold script so that King George III could read it without his spectacles. This act of signing was an act of incredible bravery. These 56 men were not just putting their names on a piece of paper. They were signing their own death warrants. They were committing treason against the crown. If the revolution failed, they would be hunted down, tried, and executed in the most gruesome ways. The signers were a diverse group. They were doctors, lawyers, farmers, and merchants. Some were wealthy, others were of modest means. Edward Rutledge of South Carolina was the youngest at 26, while Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania was the oldest at 70. Each man knew the risk. They pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, and for many, the cost was devastating. Several had their homes looted and burned. Some were captured and tortured by the British. Others lost their sons in battle or their entire fortunes to the war effort. But they never wavered. They held true to their pledge, bound by a shared belief in the cause of liberty. Their sacrifice paved the way for the freedoms we often take for granted today. The Declaration of Independence did more than just create a new nation. It launched an idea into the world, the idea of American democracy. It established the principles of popular sovereignty, natural rights, and the rule of law. It became a beacon of hope for oppressed people everywhere, inspiring countless other independence movements and revolutions around the globe. Its words have been quoted by civil rights leaders, from the suffragettes to Martin Luther King Jr., as a promise of equality yet to be fulfilled. The journey to live up to the Declaration's ideals has been long and is ongoing, but its text remains the moral standard against which America measures itself. It is the nation's conscience, a constant reminder of the principles upon which it was founded. So, the next time you see a firework burst in the July sky, remember the summer of 1776. Remember the stuffy room in Philadelphia, the scratch of a quill pen on parchment, and the brave men who risked everything. They didn't just declare independence, they declared a new way of thinking about the world. They transformed a silent hope into a valiant roar that echoed across continents and through centuries. They gave us the story of America. Thanks for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another story from our past. See you next time.